Hey everyone, this is Michael again, and welcome to the AEW Dynamite review. And tonight's Dynamite was from the Curtis Culwell Center in Garland, Texas. And I gotta say, tonight's Dynamite, I thought it was a good show. I really enjoyed tonight's Dynamite. And we had good matches tonight. In the main event, we had a Texas street fight. Was the Young Bucks, Matt and Nick Jackson, taking on Santana and Ortiz. And it was a number one contenders match. Whoever won will get to face SCU next week for the AEW World Tag Team Championships. We also had the Butcher and the Blade, along with the Bunny, of course, Allie. So we had the Butcher and the Blade versus Cody and QT Marshall. It was a tag team match. But all in all, Dynamite tonight was a good show, in my opinion. So let's get started with the Dynamite review. So Dynamite opened up tonight, AEW Dynamite opened up tonight with John Moxley versus Alex Reynolds. And this was a squash match. This match only lasted like a minute. Alex Reynolds came out along with John Silver. John Moxley pretty much laid out Alex Reynolds with a paradigm shift. So John Moxley got the pin, wins the match. So it was basically a squash match, just a minute match. So post-match, John Silver tries to go in, get a sneak attack on John Moxley. Moxley turns around, lays Silver out with the DDT. And then Chris Jericho comes out. Chris Jericho ends up coming out with the rest of the Inner Circle out there. So Jericho gets in the ring. He gets on the mic. Jericho ends up saying that he's just here to talk. He recalls him and Moxley's long history. And he talks about how Moxley, came out, with a, your leather jacket and your bowl cut hair. Jericho ends up saying that, they became enemies, but Moxley became a star. Jericho ended up saying that he navigated John Moxley to AEW. And Jericho also said that he didn't forget Moxley taking him out at Double or Nothing. He says it showed him that Moxley still has a chip on his shoulder and that he is still a winner. So Jericho ends up saying that Moxley needs him. Moxley needs Jericho. Crowd ended up booing. And with the crowd booing, Jericho ended up telling the crowd to shut the hell up, which got more boos. I mean, you can't hate Jericho here. He plays, a great heel here. So there's no chance to hate Jericho here. Everybody loves Jericho and his whole little bit of the bubbly. So Jericho ends up saying, what if the Inner Circle and John Moxley join forces? Meaning Jericho wants John Moxley to be in the Inner Circle. Jericho wants Moxley to join them in the Inner Circle. So that's what Jericho did. He asked John Moxley to join the Inner Circle. So Jericho ends up having a Inner Circle shirt. Jericho ended up saying that he wants Moxley to give it some thought. And of course, Jericho ends up taking shots at Moxley's wife, who of course is Renee Young, because Jericho was like, "Oh, talk with your lovely wife," and the Inner Circle will be waiting for his answer. So Jericho right there is throwing shade at WWE because, of course, Renee Young still with WWE, John Moxley's wife. So Jericho, was like bribing Moxley, saying that, oh, if Moxley joins the Inner Circle, they could take over AEW. If John Moxley wants that. So then we see Jericho push the Inner Circle shirt on Moxley's shoulder. Jericho ends up backing away. And Moxley ended up looking to consider it, like he wanted to join the Inner Circle. But it doesn't give away, it doesn't give away much. So, and that's how basically the segment ended. But will Moxley join the Inner Circle along with Jericho and Jake Hager, Sammy Guevara, Santana and Ortiz? Who knows? But in my opinion, Moxley ain't that stupid. Moxley ain't that stupid to join the Inner Circle. So, in my opinion, my prediction, Moxley possibly won't join the Inner Circle. I think, this is just, set up because, Jericho wants Moxley. He wants a match with John Moxley. So, this could be, another setup, in their feud. So, but John Moxley, he's not gonna join the Inner Circle. There's no chance. But who knows? I may be wrong on that. But that was that. I enjoyed the whole segment with Jericho. Then we had the Butcher and the Blade versus Cody and QT Marshall. Tag team match. Butcher and the Blade, of course, came out along with Allie, who was of course the Bunny. So it was a tag team match with them, and I gotta say, the Butcher and the Blade, they were decent in the match. I was surprised with how this was going to go with both of these guys, but it was a decent match. It was a back and forth between them. QT Marshall looked like he was getting over with the crowd at a point, but in the end, Butcher and the Blade, they end up picking up the win. They end up hitting a suplex lung blower combo on QT Marshall. So Butcher and the Blade end up picking up their first win in AEW because this was their debut match. But it was a decent match between them. Post-match, you had Darby Allin. Darby Allin comes out. He's my favorite. One of my favorite guys here in AEW. Very entertaining. I like his side face. His face painted. Looks really awesome. So Darby Allin comes down, and Darby Allin gets in Cody's face because Cody was sitting down on the floor ringside after the match. Darby Allin is there. Darby extends his hand and he helps Cody up. Darby ends up staring at Cody for a little bit. He nods at Cody and he ends up going to the back. And pretty much that was basically that. So what does this mean with Darby Allin and Cody? Maybe they could have a match, together. Who knows? But all in all, it was a decent tag match with Butcher and the Blade versus Cody and QT Marshall. Like I said, Butcher and the Blade end up picking up their win in their debut match. Then we had MJF, Maxwell Jacob Friedman. MJF comes out to the ring along with his manager, Wardlow. They come into the ring. MJF ends up telling one of the cameramen assistants to come into the ring. So MJF noticed that this assistant cameraman was laughing at MJF last week when Cody made fun of MJF's crossroads. So MJF ends up telling this guy, this assistant cameraman, that all he has to do is kiss the AEW diamond ring, which the guy ends up doing. So MJF ends up delivering a crossroads to that cameraman assistant. So MJF tells the crowd he thought that looked pretty good. And MJF ends up calling the crowd white trash hicks. And, I like MJF. He plays a great heel. He's great on the mic. And he knows how to, get, heat from the crowd. He knows when the crowd hates him. So the crowd gives him heat. So he plays a great heel. He knows how to play, a heel good. So MJF ends up saying that he heard Cody's business proposal and that he doesn't want Cody's crap or Cody's money. So he ends up saying that he's got enough to last him a lifetime. He wants Cody to suffer instead. So MJF ends up bringing up Cody when he called him a knockoff Chris Jericho. And MJF ended up wondering if it's the scarf. And that Cody ended up calling the scarf fake. But MJF ends up saying that Cody embodies fake with his hair and his teeth that he could land a helicopter on. Then MJF ends up going on to make fun of Cody's lisp. He's like, "Oh, suffering succotash, Cody." And MJF is like, "Oh, I'm sorry. Did I offend you?" I really enjoyed this whole segment with MJF. MJF knows how to cut a great promo and get heat from the crowd. And MJF ends up knowing that Cody won't fire him because he definitely couldn't get his hands on him then. So MJF says he'll wrestle Cody, but he has some stipulations. MJF said that he wouldn't announce those stipulations tonight. He'll do it in Jacksonville on New Year's Day, on Dynamite, January 1st. On the January 1st edition of Dynamite, MJF will announce those stipulations. So we're all going to have to wait until New Year's Day to know those stipulations that MJF will announce. So, but great segment. MJF knows how to cut a good promo, and it was the best 5 minutes promo in pro wrestling this year. So just really enjoyed the whole segment. When MJF gets on the mic, you listen to what he has to say. So, but great segment, great promo from MJF. Sorry about that, but after the MJF segment promo, we saw Alex Reynolds. Alex Reynolds was sitting in his hotel room. He had the TV on. And we see is a Dark Order spokesman. And he's talking about hotel amenities. He then suddenly says, "Aren't you tired of being a jobber, Alex?" So we see him tap on the TV, and he gets Alex Reynolds' attention. And he ends up saying that the Dark Order has been watching Alex Reynolds and John Silver lose a lot. And he says it's time to join the group and strengthen numbers. So then we see the Dark Order spokesman goes back talking about, the hotel that Alex Reynolds is staying at. So then we see John Silver walks in. And he asks Alex Reynolds, "What's up?" And Reynolds then replied, he isn't really sure. That's how the segment ended. But could it mean that Alex Reynolds and John Silver, will they join the Dark Order? We'll have to wait and see. But I liked it. I liked the segment. Really am interested in where AEW is taking this Dark Order thing and racking up some of these guys. Then we had the women's match, making her AEW Dynamite debut, Big Swole. I think that's how you pronounce her name. She took on Emi Sakura. And to be honest, this match was awful. This match was shit. Big Swole, to me, she did a decent job, but Emi Sakura here, this was her worst match, in my opinion. Sorry about that again, but I was saying, Emi Sakura, to me, this was her worst match, in my opinion. Just the AEW women's division so far has been pretty shitty. Same thing like WWE's women's division. But Big Swole got the win, defeated Emi Sakura with a forearm. But match was awful. It was a short women's match. Then, after that, we saw Jen Decker. She was backstage. She was interviewing Pac. And she ended up wondering what message Pac is trying to send to Kenny Omega. Pac ends up saying he came to AEW for one reason. And that reason is opportunity. Pac ends up saying since he's come here, he only suffered injustice despite putting on dominating performances. Pac ended up saying this is his final warning. He wants the rubber match against Kenny Omega. He says if they don't give him it, he won't be held accountable for what he does next. That was a little interview with Pac. Hopefully we get this rubber match against Kenny Omega and Pac. Gonna be a good match. Want to see that. So then we see, then we had Kenny Omega and Hangman Adam Page versus Kip Sabian and Shawn Spears. Shawn Spears came out on his own. Tully Blanchard didn't come out by Shawn Spears' side. And the match itself, it was a pretty decent tag team match. Kenny Omega and Hangman Adam Page made a good team here. And it was back and forth between them. Kip Sabian came out there, of course, with Penelope Ford by his side. There was a point in the match, towards the end of the match, where the lights went out. And on the stage, Joey Janela ended up bringing out Tully Blanchard. And Tully Blanchard was tied up in a chair. And Joey Janela is laughing, behind him, behind Tully Blanchard. Shawn Spears ends up running up to the stage. He ends up fighting Janela. We see Shawn Spears ends up freeing Tully Blanchard. And Shawn Spears ends up going to the back. So we had Kip Sabian just out there on his own. So and that led to Hangman Adam Page tagging in because Kenny Omega was the legal man still in the match. So Hangman Adam Page came in, ended up hitting a lariat to Kip Sabian for the win. So Kenny Omega and Hangman Adam Page win the match. And Kenny Omega, the look on Kenny Omega's face, he didn't look too thrilled. He didn't look too thrilled with Hangman Adam Page that, Hangman tagged him in. So, who knows? Is this, going to look like, they're going to turn maybe Hangman heel? Because there was talks about that. There was talks about them turning Hangman Adam Page heel. So, but if Hangman keeps doing this and showing these signs, maybe we'll get a heel turn for Hangman Adam Page. So, because Page ended up blind tagging himself in to Kenny, to Kenny Omega. But who knows? We'll have to wait and see. All in all, it was a decent tag team match. Then we saw Brandi Rhodes. We have Brandi Rhodes, and she ended up asking, what the women's division will look like without her. She ends up wondering if Rio has gotten so small that we can't even see her now. And she ends up wondering why she hasn't she was wondering why Rio hasn't defended the women's championship, the AEW Women's World Championship. And then we see Brandi Rhodes. She ends up ripping on Britt Baker, saying that she's calling Britt Baker that she's a pathetic groupie. And Brandi ends up telling Chris Statlander the offer is still on the table to join the group. So we had Melanie Cruz, who we saw last week, where they end up cutting her hair off, Brandi and Awesome Kong. So she ends up showing up with a shaved head. And, I forgot to mention, this whole group with Brandi, Awesome Kong, and Melanie Cruz reminds me of something that WWE did, back then, like 2009, 2010-ish, the Straight Edge Society, where it was CM Punk and Luke Gallows, and I forgot the woman's name that was with the Straight Edge Society. Forgot her name, though. But if anybody remembers, drop a comment down below. But it just this whole thing with Brandi and Awesome Kong and Melanie Cruz reminds me of that. This is a straight edge society, but the AEW version. But it doesn't feature Punk or Gallows, two guys. It's all three women here. So Brandi looks to have added a new person to the Nightmare Collective. But it's so we saw that. But really, I'm interested in this whole Nightmare Collective thing. So really, I'm interested in where they're taking it. So in the next match, we had Luchasaurus versus Sammy Guevara. And Jericho and Jake Hager came out for commentary. They booted out Tony Schiavone and Excalibur. So it was just JR, Jim Ross, at the commentary table, while Jericho and Hager took over for Tony Schiavone and Excalibur. And the match itself, it was a decent match between Luchasaurus and Sammy Guevara. Luchasaurus ended up getting the win. But post-match, Jericho and Hager, they ended up coming to the ring. And only Jericho was talking through the match with Luchasaurus and Sammy Guevara. Jericho was only talking through the match. Hager was there just silent. So I'm like, why put Hager on commentary when he's not going to say a word? He was just there like watching the match, not saying anything on commentary. So what was the point on putting Jake Hager on commentary when he didn't say a word? So, but as I said, post-match, Jericho and Hager, they came to the ring. They started brawling with the Jurassic Express. Jericho and Jungle Boy ended up squaring off. They were battling in the ring. And Jericho ended up thinking that he tossed Jungle Boy, out of the ring. Jungle Boy comes back in, hits a Hurricanrana to Jericho. We saw Marco Stunt end up sliding into the ring and pinned Jericho. Well, Marco Stunt slid into the ring and did the fake 3 count. Sorry about that. I got my notes all mixed up. But Jungle Boy ended up pinning Jericho. And then Mark Stunt came in, went for the fake 3 count. Jericho was not happy about that. And when they were announcing matches for next week, they were like, that did not count. That did not count. Which I laughed at. But it was a decent match between Luchasaurus and Sammy Guevara. So what happened post-match is going to set up, a match between Jericho and Jungle Boy, which is, I think, taking place next week on Dynamite. Then we had the main event, which was the Texas Street Fight between Mad Nick Jackson, the Young Bucks, and Santana and Ortiz. And whoever won this match, they will be the number 1 contenders to face SCU next week on Dynamite for the World Tag Team Championships. But this was a really awesome main event, and this match had no time limit, had no disqualifications, no submissions, pinfalls end up counting. But it was an awesome match. Before the match got underway, the Young Bucks made their way out with their entrance. Santana and Ortiz end up sneak attacking Matt and Nick from behind. So Brad Cutler comes out, and tries to help. They get powerbombed. He gets powerbombed through a portion of the stage. And Guevara ends up coming out to help Santana and Ortiz. A table is, set up. Santana attempts to climb, but he is sent off the stage. And, it's back and forth between Matt and Nick Jackson and Santana Ortiz on the stage. And we saw SCU was at ringside watching the match. And Ortiz ends up getting dropped and put on the table. Nick Jackson ends up hitting a senton off the top of the entrance and breaks the table. And AEW Dynamite went to commercial during that. And towards later on in the match, we had Matt Jackson. He ends up having a football helmet. He's wearing a football helmet, the Dallas Cowboys helmet, because of course they're in Texas. Yeah, I call them the Dallas Cowgirls. Yeah, I know I probably pissed off some Cowboys fans, but I don't care. If you like the Cowboys, that's fine. But Matt Jackson was wearing that football helmet for the Dallas Cowboys, blocking shots from Santana Ortiz. He ends up spearing both Santana Ortiz, which was really cool. Santana ended up going to a table. Ortiz ended up hitting a senton cannonball to the outside. He ended up putting Nick Jackson through a table. Nick Jackson ended up hitting a 450 splash. And he ended up putting one guy through a trash can. I think it was Santana. Jake Hager ends up running out. Ends up yanking the referee out to the floor. And he yanks, because Hager ended up yanking out Rick Knox, who was the referee. And Nick Jackson goes to kick Jake Hager. And Nick accidentally, kicks Rick Knox, the referee. So Rick Knox was, sorry about that again, but like I was saying, Rick Knox was knocked out because of Nick Jackson. Dustin Rhodes ended up running out, ended up attacking Jake Hager. Both of them ended up fighting to the back. We had Matt and Nick. They ended up dropping Ortiz with a buck bomb and also a kick to the back to Ortiz's head. And the Young Bucks looked like they were going to pick up the win. The referee was still knocked out. Aubrey Edwards, another referee, female referee, came out, ended up making the count. But it was they only got a 2 count. The Young Bucks only got a 2 count. Crowd was chanting Aubrey. And Santana ended up sending Nick Jackson through a table on the floor. And at the end of the match, Matt and Nick Jackson, they end up hitting a Meltzer driver on Ortiz. So Matt and Nick Jackson pick up the win. They get to face SCU next week on Dynamite for the World Tag Team Championships. And then you had post-match SCU. They got in the ring. They had, of course, their titles with them. And they end up having a face-off with Matt and Nick Jackson. And pretty much that's how Dynamite went off the air. But awesome street fight between Matt and Nick Jackson and Santana Ortiz. Really looking forward to the match next week with the Young Bucks and SCU. They're going to put on a great match. But to me, SCU, next week, they're still going to retain the World Tag Team Championships. But that was Dynamite tonight. Decent show. Really enjoyed it. So anyways, that's it for my review of tonight's AEW Dynamite. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed this review. And definitely give the video a thumbs up. Comment, subscribe. And until next video, which there will be no SmackDown review on Friday night. It'll possibly be up on Saturday. So stay tuned for that. Who knows what the next video will be. Maybe I'll do something else, or it will be the SmackDown review. So, till next video, I'll see you all later.